Do you know, if you play your cards right, you could really improve your English with this podcast. But you have to roll the dice and take a chance. Improve your gambling vocabulary and learn some gambling idioms on this episode of
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello, my name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching between us, we'll help you to improve your English and take everything up to the next level. How are you, Reza?
I'm fine. I'm raring and ready to go. And you?
I'm feeling great. It's a beautiful day here in Valencia, Spain, and I'm looking forward to podcasting with you on gambling vocabulary and idioms. But before we do that, we've got a recommendation from our friend Pilar from France. She writes about a BBC podcast which has many different accents and topics. It's called The Infinite Monkey Cage. Do you know it?
I've heard of it, but I haven't actually listened to it, but I have heard of it. Have you listened to it?
I have listened to a little of it. I didn't have much time to listen to many, but I listened to about 5 or 10 minutes, and it really is very good. So we definitely recommend you check it out, which means go and have a look, see if you like it. There's a link in the show notes, which can be found at inglespodcast.com/306. And as Pilar says, it will help you with listening to different accents and people speaking about different topics and subjects from different places. So you really get a variety of accents when people speak English. So definitely go and look at that. And thank you very much, Pilar, for taking the time to recommend it.
Yes, merci beaucoup, Pilar. I will try to listen to it as soon as possible because I'm interested in the accents.
Reza, why are you speaking with this strange accent?
Because our friend Pilar, of course, lives in France. So that was my rather bad attempt at a French accent.
Très bon. If you are struggling and finding it very, very difficult to understand people when they're speaking, one thing you could do is get a private teacher. You can do that by going to our sponsor, italki. italki has a website, and there you can get connected with teachers of English and other languages. But obviously you're interested in English, you're listening to us, and you can find a one-to-one personal teacher who will help you improve your English using Skype or other internet software. Now, italki are offering a $10 credit if you sign up and pay for your first lesson through our link. And to find out information, go to inglespodcast.com/306. Click on the link or on the italki image, and that will take you to their webpage where you can sign up. And Reza and I both definitely recommend this service if you need some help with your English from a personal teacher. And remember, you can study when you like because it's very flexible. It's a very flexible service. So you choose the day and time. And of course, you can also choose your teacher. So you can choose an American teacher, an English teacher, British English teacher, an Australian teacher. And there's a lot of flexibility on their platform, not only with teachers, but also with the prices of the classes. So go have a look. We both recommend italki if you're looking for a private teacher online. And Reza and I would like to thank italki very much for sponsoring this podcast.
Okay, Craig, the game is on. Let's get started.
Game is on.
So, shall we start with some basic and very important vocabulary? To gamble. We mentioned the title gambling vocabulary. So gambling is the activity. So the verb is to gamble, or it can be a noun, a gamble. To take a gamble, for example, to take a risk, to take a gamble.
And a person who gambles is a gambler. Are you a gambler, Reza?
I'm not much of a gambler. I don't often gamble. What about you?
Me neither. I am not attracted by gambling machines, casinos. No, I'm very, not anti-gambling, but it's not something that really excites me.
So you don't bet much.
I'm not a betting man. To bet is to place money on something. So, for example, you have some horses that are running. Then you bet on one horse to win. So you put money on the fact that that horse will win. If the horse wins, you win. And if the horse loses, then you lose your money. So that is to gamble and to bet. Is there a difference between gambling and betting? Not sure if there is really.
Not really, no.
Pretty much mean the same thing. There's different collocations, perhaps. And there's the preposition on, which is the same. You gamble on something, you bet on something. Bet is a verb and also a noun. So you can place a bet on something or put a bet on something. Bet is B-E-T.
You mentioned betting on cards and also horses. What do you call it when you bet on the football results?
In the UK, it's called doing the pools. P-O-O-L-S. The football pools. It's very common. When I was growing up in London, on Saturday, people put money on the pools. They bet on the pools. Which football team's going to win? And it's a very social way to spend a Saturday morning. What other things can people bet on, Reza, or gamble on?
You can even bet on dogs. In the UK and Ireland, not really in Spain, but in Britain and Ireland, it's quite common for people to bet on which dogs win a race.
Do people bet on dogs in Spain?
Not officially anyway. I've heard that in certain circles they do privately. But in the UK, there are official dog racing courses. And the dogs are always greyhounds, galgos. Now, I don't want to get into that because I know many people are against the idea.
Do they think it's cruel?
They do. They think that the greyhounds, los galgos, shouldn't be used for running. But in reality, it is still legal in the UK and Ireland, and people do bet on dogs.
Do they think it's cruel to race horses as well and bet on horses?
Some people do. Some do, some don't. The thing is, horses can run with much more at ease than dogs for a long time. I mean, all dogs can run, but horses can run long distances. But it's not so natural for a dog to run a long distance.
Other things you can bet on the lottery, which you also can in most countries. And those cards that you buy in shops that you scratch, rascar is to scratch. They're called scratch cards. So you buy a card, you scratch it, maybe you win some money. Usually you don't. That's another way of gambling. And obviously at the casino, casinos are very popular in some countries, and there are different games that you can gamble on in a casino. Reza, can you name some of them?
I only know some of them because I'm not a betting man like Craig. So I've heard of roulette. Everyone's heard of roulette, right? So that's a French word that's got into English, roulette. Blackjack.
Or 21, sometimes called 21.
21 because you use cards and the idea is that if the total adds up to 21, that's the best score you can get. Mm-hmm. There's another one called craps that I've heard of. I think for craps, you have to roll a dice. Now, what's that, to roll a dice?
A dice, we've spoken about in a previous podcast, it's a cube with numbers on, with dots from 1 to 6. And to roll the dice is to throw the dice on a special table. And then you put money or you place a bet on the numbers that you get when you roll the dice. So craps is one game with dice. There's another popular game in some casinos, Punto Banco, which in some places is called Baccarat, which looks French to me, Baccarat.
I've heard of that word. I've never heard of Punto Banco, but I've heard of Baccarat.
And of course, in most casinos, you get slot machines, which used to be called one-arm bandits, but I don't think they're called one-arm bandits anymore. But you used to pull a lever and then the fruit would go around, and you could win money if you get like 3 or 4 apples together, or 3 or 4 oranges. But I think they're called slot machines now because they're electronic.
You said the fruit goes around. Yeah, the picture traditionally on the wheels that go around is fruit for some reason. And in fact, I've even heard some people say a fruit machine.
Yeah, me too.
A fruit machine. So it's not a machine that sells fruit.
No.
It's a slot machine.
Yeah, it's a game of chance. A game of chance is any game that you gamble on that is just luck. If it's lucky, if it's only a game of luck, we say it's a game of chance. You never know if you're going to win or not.
I've heard of a word, and I think I know what it is, the croupier.
Also French.
Yeah, is that basically a fancy way of saying the dealer?
Yeah, if they're dealing cards, if you're playing 21 or blackjack, it will be the dealer. Although if the person is spinning the roulette wheel, that would be a croupier.
For me, a dealer could be anybody. So if Craig and I have a game of cards, maybe first of all, he might be the dealer. Then we have another game when we change and I'm the dealer. But I certainly don't think of him as a croupier. For me, a croupier inhabits the world of James Bond and Monte Carlo casinos and that type of thing. That's your croupier, right?
And wears an evening suit with a bow tie and a jacket and a white shirt. Yeah.
Or will be an extremely attractive woman, if it's a woman. Yeah, for me, that's croupier. It's a high-class dealer, right?
Yep. Poker's a popular card game, and if you have a poker face, you show no emotion or reaction. So that's an expression that's used in everyday conversation. If you have a poker face, you're not showing any emotion at all.
So where do you place these bets? How do you bet? Where do you go? Well, you can go to a betting shop. Not surprising to hear that word, but one which might surprise you is the word bookmaker. You might think, oh, a bookmaker is a person who makes books, right? Wrong. A bookmaker is a person who owns a betting shop. Also in colloquial English called a bookie. Or you can even say, very common in Ireland, a turf accountant.
What's turf? Turf?
I think the Spanish word is turbia. It's that half kind of humid, half dry thing that you can dig from the ground and burn. In other words, where the horses run. Their feet are on the turf.
So kind of like grass and mud together?
Yeah. In fact, turf can be used and is used in Ireland as a fuel. You know, in Scotland they call it peat, and in Ireland turf. So a turf accountant is a colourful way of saying a bookmaker, because imagine they're an accountant, un contable, who deals in things to do with turf. In other words, the horses run on the turf.
And this idea of going to a betting shop or a bookie or a bookmaker is very common in British culture. Those of you who have been to the UK may have seen in the high streets, among the shops, betting shops.
And in Spain now.
And in Spain now too.
For the last 4 or 5 years.
But I don't know in Spain if you can bet on horses and dogs in the same way as you can in the UK, where you watch the races on television.
Okay.
I've never been inside, but I have a feeling it's mainly slot machines and games. I don't know.
Okay.
Years ago, my dad worked in a betting shop. He used to take bets from people back in the days when there was no online betting. And a good friend of mine who is a gambler, who recently came to visit in Valencia, he used to go to the betting shop every Saturday morning and bet on horses and sometimes dogs. Now, it's all online. So he goes online and places his bets through his bank, and then if he wins, the money goes into his bank account. And he misses the days when you could walk into a betting shop and speak to people, have a conversation, and it was more like a community club of gamblers that used to watch the races together and encourage the horses and shout for the horses to win.
I can't for the life of me, that means it's impossible for me, I can't for the life of me understand what pleasure, excitement, or anything similar there could possibly be from betting online. I get the idea of doing it in a betting shop. Yeah, you're waiting to see what happens. There's other people there. Online, how on earth could that possibly be of any excitement to anybody. I do not understand it. I cannot understand it. Can you?
No, but I can't understand when people bet in cafes and they play the fruit machines and
I can,
the
because
gambling
it's
machines.
happening before your eyes. It's spinning round. It's fixed. I know that.
It spins around on the screen.
On a computer, yeah. An algorithm says do this. What's that? For goodness sake.
But there's an algorithm in the machine in the bar.
Yeah, but at least you're seeing it. It's happening before your eyes. It's like when a magician plays a trick, you know he's going to win, but it's kind of fun watching him. What's the fun in watching a screen that has been programmed 25 years in advance to do this algorithm for X time? What's the fun in that? How could there be any excitement in that? I don't get it. I admit it. Some people love it. Great. I'm sure some of our listeners do. I cannot get my head around it. I get my head around the betting shop. Mm-hmm. Both my brothers are fairly keen gamblers and often go to betting shops. I get it. But online? What's that about? I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Have you been to a casino?
Never in my life, but I'd like to go. But I would never place a bet online. Doesn't do anything for me. Even if I was a multi-millionaire, I still wouldn't place a bet online. I'd rather go to Monte Carlo and lose my money there. It'd be much more fun.
There's a casino in near Benidorm. We should go one day.
I'm game for that, yeah.
You game for it.
I'm game for that, yeah.
I bet you are. There's another expression, Reza, to double down on something. What does that mean, to double down on a bet, for example?
Does that mean that you had bet a certain amount of money, X, but now you multiply it by 2?
Exactly.
You're going to pay double.
So if you've bet £10 and you want to double it, you double down on the bet, so it's £20. Or you could also say double or nothing. You double a bet. Let's say, for example, I bet we get some audio message through today and we don't, and you win the bet. I could say, okay, we'll do the same bet for tomorrow, double or nothing. So I pay you double, or we call it quits. If you call something quits, then nothing's owed.
In fact, I've heard some people say double or quits as well.
Double or quits, yeah.
And Craig, if we do go to a casino and we get lucky, at the end of the night, we might get to cash in our chips. What does that mean?
When you gamble in a casino, you don't gamble with money. You don't put euros or dollars or pounds on the table. When you want to gamble, you give the cash to the person in the cashier's desk, and she gives you coloured chips, and that's what you gamble with.
Chips made out of potatoes?
No, you can't eat them. They're made out of plastic and they have the value of the money.
Is it a microchip?
No, it's not a microchip. It's a round disc that's called a chip. So if you cash in your chips, if you're lucky enough to have won a lot of money, you go back to the cashier kiosk, the cashier desk, and you say, I'd like to cash in my chips, please. You give the person your chips and you get cash money back. So if you're lucky, you've got a lot of cash to take home. But there's another meaning of that expression, Reza, isn't there? What does it mean to cash in your chips? What happens when you cash in your chips when you get old or if you're sick?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's strangely a negative thing. So to cash in your chips in the casino would be a good thing. You've got money. But the idiom, oh, he's going to cash in his chips soon, he's going to die. It means it's the end. You're going to die.
I hope it's a long time before we have to cash in our chips.
I would love to be able to cash in chips in a casino, even if it was just like for like £1. Because for me, I kind of identify it with glamour and stuff. You know, I want to be in Monte Carlo, you know, and everybody's glamorous. I'm wearing a bow tie and all that. And they say, yes, I'd like to cash in my chips, you know, like the kind of thing they do in a James Bond film, you know. You cash in your chips at the end of the evening after you've enjoyed several cocktails, you know.
And then you give a $10 or $50
$100
chip or a $100 chip to the cashier and say, that's for you. Thank you very much. So So as Reza said, to cash in your chips when you die is an idiom. We've got some more idioms connected to gambling and betting. All bets are off. All bets are off. What does that mean? Well, if something that seemed certain is now unclear, you could say all bets are off. If there's an agreement that no longer applies, you could say all bets are off. For example, at work, maybe in our school, we agree to work some extra hours if they pay us to work extra hours. But if they're not going to pay us, even though we agreed, I'm sorry, all bets are off. There's no way I'm working for free. All bets are off. I'm not doing it.
Another common expression which comes from gambling is to put your money where your mouth is.
Is that literally take the money and put it on your mouth?
Not literally. It means to take action to support your statements or opinions. So imagine you've said something. Well, anybody can say anything, but are you actually going to do it? Are you going to put your money where your mouth is? In other words, you say, "Oh, I think such and such is going to win the competition." Would you be prepared to bet money? Put your money where your mouth is. Then, actually do what you say.
I'm going to lose 15 kilos before my birthday in May.
Let's see if you put your money where your mouth is.
Okay. I'll make a bet with you.
And not put chocolate where your mouth is.
That's probably what's going to happen. I'll put the chocolate where my mouth is. That's not an idiom. Don't learn that one. We don't say that. Only Reza says that. What does it mean to play your cards right?
Well, if you played your cards right in a game of cards, you've won. You've made a good move. So in real life, it's to exploit a situation to your advantage. Like in poker, you knew when to raise, when to not raise, how much to bet. You played your card right, so you exploited the situation to the optimum point.
And as we said at the beginning of the podcast, if you play your cards right, you could really improve your English with this podcast. And if I play my cards right, next month when I go to Disney World, I might meet Mickey Mouse. If I play my cards right.
For Craig, that would be to hit the jackpot.
It would? What does that mean?
If he met Mickey, it's like, you can't get better than that. Go to the USA and meet Mickey Mouse. What a great success. That's exactly what he wants. You can't get better than that. It's just what he wanted. So to hit the jackpot, the maximum prize, the best thing you could possibly get.
It usually has to do with money, although not necessarily. You remember those teachers who retired from the school a few years ago and they got a very, very good redundancy package. The redundancy package is the amount of money you get when you leave a company because you retire. So they got a really, really good offer, a good redundancy package, retirement offer. They really hit the jackpot with their redundancy.
Now, I'm sure everyone's heard the word bingo, and you know it's a game because it's the same in Spanish. But if somebody says in a conversation, bingo, but they're not playing bingo, what's all that about, Craig? If I said to you, bingo.
It means that you've been successful with something, or there's a winning plan, or something as acertado. You could use it in that sense. It's like, how old do you think I am? Oh, I think you're 56. Bingo.
That was exactly right.
Exactly right. You hit it right on the nose. There's another idiom. If you hit something on the nose, as acertado, it's exactly correct. Or you could just say bingo.
Imagine I'm doing an internet search and Craig says, can you find a place which is really good value and nearby? And I look on internet and there's a place doing a 5-course meal for €2 around the corner. Bingo. That's exactly what we were looking for.
On the other hand, you could go walking around an area that has lots of bars and restaurants and just go in any restaurant that you see, and maybe it's good, you take a chance. So it's the luck of the draw. It's the luck of the draw. And the draw, D-R-A-W, in this example is not dibujar. It's more in the sense of doing a lottery where they draw numbers or balls with numbers on, and it's a game of chance. So the luck of the draw is random success or random failure. It's the luck of the draw. It's chance.
Now, if you're going to take a risk, but you don't want to take a huge risk, just a bit of a risk, you could hedge your bets. To hedge, Hedge. A hedge is like a line of bushes, arbustos in a line. So it's quite often used as a kind of boundary in the British countryside to mark, where somebody's land ends and another person's begins. So if you're on the hedge, you're neither on one part nor the other. So to hedge your bets, you're backing two or more winners. So even if one loses, the other one might win. So you haven't declared yourself absolutely in favor of just one possibility, but two or more. You're hedging your bets.
More extreme than that, you could go for broke, BROKE. Broke is when you have nothing. If you say, I'm sorry, I have no money, I'm broke, you have no money in the bank, you have no money in your pocket, you're completely broke. If you go for broke, it's all or nothing. For example, you take £1,000 or €1,000 to the casino and you decide to put all of the money on red. Because in roulette, there are red numbers and black numbers. It's 50-50. So if you go for broke, you put everything on red and hope that you win. All or nothing.
If something's in the cards, it's in the cards, that means it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It couldn't be avoided. It was in the cards.
Do you think there's an economic crash in the cards?
I do, because that's just the nature of our society, of the economy. It has ups and downs. So sooner or later, there's going to be a crash again. Yeah, it's in the cards.
Yeah, I agree. It's in the cards. The last one was 2008. And now we're 2020, so yeah, I think it's in the cards. It's inevitable. You could have an ace up your sleeve if you have a hidden advantage or you keep something back until the time is right. So that expression comes from cards, to have an ace or to have a card up your sleeve. You're holding something back until the time is right. Can you think of an example?
Imagine, well, you don't need to imagine, it happens all the time, but let's imagine a political campaign of two politicians, and they'll obviously criticize each other. They'll say bad things about each other. You're expecting that. But timing's very important. So quite often, one of them will have an ace up his or her sleeve. He will wait until the time is just right to say something which he knows will really damage his opponent. For example, he might have known for a year that his opponent has cheated on his wife or something like that. He could have said it immediately, but no, what's the point in that? Because people might have forgotten about it by the time the elections come. So he'll say it a week before the elections. He was keeping it up his sleeve. He was waiting for the right time to release the information. He had an ace up his sleeve.
But if he had said it at the time and not waited, he would have put his cards on the table. Mm-hmm. To put your cards on the table means to make your thoughts or ideas perfectly clear. So I want to be honest with you. I want to be open. I'm going to put my cards on the table. Tell the truth.
Craig used an expression earlier, poker faced. So obviously we use it in poker. You try in a serious game of poker not to reveal if you're happy or sad or worried or really over the moon with your cards, because then your opponent will know how they should bet. So some people have their poker face, a face where they try not to show any expression to hide their reaction to their card. So in real life, we use it as well. Imagine I said something which I thought was really funny to Craig, but quite often in reality, it's not. He might remain poker-faced. He didn't smile, he didn't laugh because it was a silly joke, which wasn't very funny. His facial expression didn't move. He was poker-faced.
Staying with cards for a minute, when you have cards together, we say it's a deck of cards, D-E-C-K, or a pack of cards. And if the deck is stacked against you, that means it's unfair. It's going to be harder for you. It's going to be impossible, maybe, to win. So to stack the deck is an expression which means it's impossible to lose. You can prepare things in advance and stack the deck in your favor. However, if the deck is stacked against you, then you have less chance of being successful.
In some games, rather than cards, as we said earlier, you roll a dice. So you have the little cubes in your hand, could be one or two, and you roll them, you throw them away. And when we use that as an expression, you could probably guess it means to take a chance on something. So let's roll the dice and see what happens. In other words, let's take a chance, like in a game. Let's just do this. It might go well, it might go badly, but we don't know till we've done it. So we got to roll the dice.
If you refuse to do something or you refuse to agree on something, you can say, no dice. No way. Never gonna happen. No dice. That just means refusing to do something, saying no.
In betting, we often talk about stakes. That's S-T-A-K-E-S, the stakes. In other words,
that's not the steak you eat.
Not the steak you eat, beef steak, because that would be S-T-E-A-K. These stakes are the odds, O-D-D-S, the rate of return for your bet. In other words, if the stakes, the odds are 2-1, if you bet £1 and you win, the bookmaker will give you £2. So the stakes were 2-1. So if the stakes are high, that means there's a lot to play for. In other words, a lot can be won or lost. So quite often in poker, like in James Bond films, again, that's my reference for poker, quite often they will say minimum stake, £50,000. In other words, you can't even play unless you bet £50,000. They won't let you play. You can bet more than that if you want. So the stakes there are really high. You're going to win or lose at least £50,000. So you got to think about that before you do it.
Yesterday I went to the butcher and I said to him, can I have those 2 pieces of meat up there on the top shelf? And do you know what he said?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, the stakes are too high.
Because it's exactly the same pronunciation. S-T-E-A-K, S-T-A-K-E. The stakes are too high. If you want to make a risky situation more appealing, you can sweeten the pot. Now, that's not a cooking pot. We're not cooking here. When you play poker, for example, the money that you see in the center of the table in the movies when the mafia are playing cards and poker, that is called the pot. That is all the money you're going to win if you win the hand of poker. But idiomatically, if you sweeten the pot, you add something to a deal or to a condition to make it more attractive. For example, if I said to you, Reza, can you lend me your car for the weekend? And you went, oh, my car, I think I need it this weekend. I say, look, I'll pay you to lend it to me. I will clean the car, and to sweeten the pot, I'll return it to you full of petrol.
Oh, right. You see, now I'm prepared to take that risk.
Because I've sweetened the pot. I've made it more attractive to him.
Craig, have you ever played Russian roulette?
Not literally or idiomatically. Have you?
Perhaps I have idiomatically, but not literally. I'm sure all of you have heard of the game Russian roulette. Instead of spinning balls around, you load a gun with one bullet, put it to your head, and see if you get the bullet or not. If not, the other person then tries until somebody kills himself. I'm not sure if people often do it in real life, but anyway, the idea exists. If we use it as an idiom, if I say, oh, you're playing Russian roulette, I don't mean you're literally pointing a gun at your head. I mean you're taking an excessively dangerous risk, like playing Russian roulette. You could get the bullet, you could kill yourself. It's far too risky. So don't play Russian roulette. means don't take such a big risk.
And speaking of taking risks, in for a penny, in for a pound. That expression means why not take an even bigger risk? If you're taking a small risk, then go for it. 100%, go for it. Risk everything. Just go 100%. In for a penny, in for a pound. You're taking a chance. Why not take a big chance?
That's our version, by the way, of that Spanish idiom, de perdidos al río.
Yes.
That's how you say it in Spanish. In for a penny, in for a pound. I've bet a penny. Okay, I'm going to bet a pound. De perdidos al río.
Mm-hmm. Reza, do you think next year we're going to get a pay rise in our school?
Oh, don't bet on that. Don't bet on that. In other words, no, I'm not sure at all. You could be wrong. Don't be sure about that. You think, oh, but we haven't had a pay rise in 15 years. Surely it's time. No. We know what they're like, so don't bet on that.
I wouldn't bet on it either. What about this proverb, Reza? What does this mean? Lucky in cards, unlucky in love.
Well, it's a strange one, and it simply means what it says. There's nothing to imagine there. There's an idea that if you're good at playing games, at cards, you'll be a bad lover. Do you think there's any truth in that?
Well, I'm thinking if you gamble a lot, you probably wouldn't be very popular with your partner. So if you work hard, your partner works hard, and then every weekend you're gambling on cards and you're losing money, then you're not going to be very successful in love. Maybe there's something there. I don't know. Are you lucky in love or unlucky in love or lucky in cards?
I'm a bit strange. I'm unlucky in cards and in love. Craig, I think this podcast has gone quite well so far. Do you?
I think we should quit while we're ahead, as if we are professional gamblers and we're very sensible. I think because we're winning, we should stop. Let's quit while we're ahead and say goodbye. So now it's your turn to practice your English. Reza, how could people improve their speaking with us?
You could send a voice message to speakpipe.com/English Or if you are a bit shy, but we'd prefer you to send a voice message. But if you're still a bit shy, okay, you can write. You can send an email to
me, Craig, at inglespodcast.com.
Or me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
And we invite you to go visit our online store at mansioningles.net, where you will find courses to improve your English. store.mansioningles.net, and there's a link in the show notes.
As usual, we'd like to thank all of you who are helping us by supporting this podcast on Patreon. If you are interested in becoming a Patreon sponsor, you could go to patreon.com/English, and for as little as $1 a month, you can get instant access to recent transcriptions. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors, but as ever, I have to say that we don't have time, so we can only thank, in this episode, our most recent sponsors, who are
Roberto Rossi, Mercedes Fernandez, Daniel Alejandro Alessod Pavez, Blas Lopez, Marisa, Manuel Martinez, and Camilo Meza. Thank you very much for your support. If you're interested in joining the Patreon program for as little as $1 per month, you get instant access to recent transcriptions. Go to patreon.com/English podcast. What's next week, Reza?
difficult word for Spanish speakers.
Next week, pronunciation. Difficult words for Spanish speakers. Until next week, thank you for listening this week. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later. Music also by Kevin MacLeod, Deb Farrell, and Aces High. Available on incompetech.com.